folks, I'm out here today. It's about 82 degrees early in the fall of 2020, and I just finished zeroing this new Schmidt & Bender scope that I have on my IWI Tavor. And as you already know, I'm working up a new load using TAC powder for this rifle. And today I'm going to be testing out 5 different loadings. 4 of those are using TAC, and they arose from the Harmonic node testing and such. And the last load is the load I worked up quite a while ago. It is loaded with Varget powder. And by the way, all of these loads are using the same bullet, a 69 grain Barnes match burner. We're going to be shooting at 100 yards. That's where I zeroed it. Ended up pretty darn good. Kind of was chasing the groups around for a little while. I think I got her dialed in pretty well. I don't know the trajectory drops on this, so I'm really hesitant to move to 200 yards. So we're going to shoot this at 100 yards, all 5 different groups at 100 yards. Once I decide on what load I'm really going to go to and use in the future, I'll go ahead and calculate the trajectory or the drop that load's going to give me, and then I'll be able to shoot at 200 and 300 yards afterwards. So we're going to be measuring extreme spread. That's my measure of precision. I'll also be scoring those using my bullseye overlay. That'll be my measure of accuracy. And lastly, we're going to go ahead and get consistency using this lab radar chronograph. And we're going to be looking at specifically the standard deviation of each of those 5-shot groups. So let's go ahead and get started. This is group number 1. I'll be shooting at the target, or the bullseye I should say, in the upper left corner. 22 grains of TAC. This represents a harmonic node. Let's see how it does. We had about 100 feet per second variability in velocity. Now I shot quite a few rounds earlier, so this bore is plenty seasoned for the day. That's 5. Now the wind is more or less negligible for the day. Very, very light wind, if anything, that I'm feeling or even recording. Now this is group number 2, also loaded with TAC, 23 grains of TAC, and it represents the second harmonic node that we detected earlier. I'm looking at the bullseye in the upper right. Looks like that one hit just a bit low, below the center of the bullseye, that is. Felt good. One last round. That's our 5. And this one is group number 3. Also one of the harmonic nodes that we identified earlier. Shooting at the bullseye in the lower left. Going hot. These are going quite a bit faster. That one's almost 2,800 feet per second. 2,700 feet per second also. This is only 1 grain of difference in the powder charge. That's 5 rounds. Back on safe. Now this is group number 4. This one's different. This doesn't represent a harmonic mean or harmonic node. What it represents is an optimal charge weight that I detected when I was shooting the original workup with TAC powder. This is 23.8 grains of TAC. Bullseye at the lower right. $27.30. Back on safe. This is group number 5. It represents, actually, this one is loaded with Varget, 24.3 grains of Varget, same cases, same primer, and same bullet. We're going to put this one at the centermost bullseye. I really like this Schmidt & Bender scope. This is a first focal plane, 1.5 to 8. PM2 short dot. Going hot. There we go. Last group, last round, 25 rounds fired today for groups. Let's go ahead and take a look at how it all turned out downrange. Back on safe. Open to cool. Well, if you recall, this is group 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. This represents a harmonic node. 4 shots shot very nicely. This one pulled. I don't recall thinking that I pulled any of those. They felt like pretty darn well-placed shots. This one here, it's strung terribly. Felt like I, again, had a really good hold right on that dead bullseye, but they strung really, really poorly. This one here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 pulled up. Not a very good group. Again, we're only firing at 100 yards. And these are all based on harmonic nodes. This last one over here was based on a velocity node or optimal charge weight. And we got 4 very nice rounds, and then again, one more that pulled off to the right. These 4 were from TAC powder. This center one was from Varget. Boy, she shot very nice. I will also note, though, that this is the load that I zeroed the rifle with just a little bit ago. So it had a better chance of shooting accurately, but it didn't have any advantage of shooting precisely. The 2 groups that look the best are actually this one, optimal charge weight with Varget, and a harmonic node with TAC. We'll go ahead and measure those. I might actually exclude the worst one just because I might have done this, so I might be measuring both a 4-shot and a 5-shot group. Well, first of all, let me say that I rewatched the range footage, and I cannot see any reason why I should, or justification, to throw out one of these rounds that flew a little bit low, a little bit left, a little bit right. So I have measured the precision and scored the accuracy using all 5 rounds. And it's kind of deceiving that the rounds that impacted in the center bullseye, that's the load that I worked up using Varget, that looks like a really nice group. And I think it's because it's so centered right there on the bullseye, has a nice score to it. But actually it has a slightly larger extreme spread than our measure of precision. Relative, I should say, compared to the very first group that I fired, which was one of our harmonic node groups using 22 grains of Ramshot TAC. So just like we saw a couple of episodes ago, there is one of our harmonic node groups compared to my tried and true group that I may have developed, in this case developed a couple of years ago using velocity node and optimal charge weight. Those two were very, very similar, and once again I'd hate to live on the difference between those two. One brings in a 1.9 MOA and the other a 2.1 MOA. Now, it's not really a very fair comparison, but I will note it nonetheless, that the Varget group scored better, 49 points with 2 in the X, in contrast to, or in comparison to, a score of 47 with also having 2 in the X. And I say that that's kind of not a fair comparison because you might recall that I had just zeroed this rifle, this scope, using that same Varget load. So while I'll note it, I'm not going to put too much emphasis on it. The other 3 groups are really not very interesting. Poor precision, poor accuracy, and certainly nothing to write home about when we look at the consistency of the muzzle velocities. But let's go back and compare consistency of the muzzle velocities for the 2 groups that we are interested in. There's a couple of problems that I see, or concerns that I have with this TAC load. Number one, it's slow. 2,500 feet per second out of the muzzle for a 69 grain bullet compared to an additional 200 feet per second from the Varget load. That really is something to consider. The Varget load is going to give us a little bit longer range and probably a little bit better terminal performance. In addition, a comparatively low standard deviation of 18 feet per second should perform better or outperform a load with a 55 foot per second standard deviation. Now this Varget load really didn't perform as well as it usually does. I'm usually at about 1.5, maybe a 1.6 MOA group. This one came in just a little over 2 MOA. Nonetheless, I'll let the data speak. And what we're seeing once again is a very, very similar end result when we work up a load looking for the harmonic nodes in comparison to another load developed using a velocity node approach. Hey, stick around. We've got some more good stuff coming up in our next episode of Extreme Reloading. In fact, we're going to be shifting gears just a little bit. We're going to start looking at the necks, and in particular, we're going to look at the effect of neck tension on our .308 Winchester. We're going to go back to the Ruger Precision Rifle. Thanks for watching.